This is the Propaganda Report. I am Brad Binkley, joined by Ian Covell. The Department of Education axed CIA's psychology of dirty tricks and how to search the massive amount of JFK files. I might have actually found a helpful way to navigate through questions those 80,000 PDF image documents that they don't want you to be able to search. And later on in the show, I will tell you how you too can do that. Now, it's not foolproof, but asking the right questions, you can find some interesting information. Ian, how are you doing? It's March Madness.
Oh, yeah, I'm mad as hell.
Yeah, right. Well, everybody's
March
mad
and I'm
all
mad
the time.
as hell, man.
That's what the government wants people to be. Yep. It's mad crazy, mad angry.
Mad, tired. Brad, I paid $14.99 for budget coffee today. For a can of coffee. $14.99.
So a whole you got a whole can.
I got the can.
What's budget coffee? Did you go to the dollar store?
Chock full of nuts. You ever drink chock full of nuts? Has no nuts in it.
No,
it's fucking great.
That's what it's called. It's chock full of nuts.
It's great. Yeah, chock full of nuts.
The chock full of nuts coffee prices are $14 a can. It's all Biden's awful economics.
It's insane. It is.
Yeah, it is crazy.
It's crazy. But
they
it's
say
all right.
Is the price of eggs going down? They say it is. I haven't bought eggs in a little while.
Yeah, I think the eggs are going down. I bought some eggs recently. It's
is
the egg
funny
whites that I've had a hard time finding.
Yeah, where's your egg white section? And they're like, oh, why's it got to be egg whites? We got some egg DEI blacks here.
I just want the egg whites only, guys. Just the egg whites.
Get out of my
only.
stove. Get out of my stove. So, let's get over here. All right. What's up, Poe Deegan? So let me start real quick. Reading a comment. You are the cool media, or a better word for the media, from Forest Mommy. This was back in January. Last night, I was looking through the back end of Rumble, and I didn't even realize there was
looking right through its back end.
Right through its back end. I didn't realize there was a donation feature similar to Super Chats on YouTube. And I saw a number of people had donated, and I had not recognized it, and I apologize. And I will be thanking you guys moving forward. Sam, D's last, you'll clap when I'm gone. Zach, Stoner, you guys have all donated through the Super Chat or the Rumble version of that, and I appreciate that. And I know I'm leaving out a few. The back ends of these YouTube and Rumble systems make things that should be easy to find difficult to locate. And I was a little surprised. Totally. It's just like
root around
in there. And I had no idea that there was that feature. So thank you, Force Mommy. Thank you for the great comment and for the donation, and everyone who has donated in those manners and in other ways as well. That is another way to support the show, which I don't often mention, is through those Super Chat clickable buttons that now I know there's one on Rumble as well. So thank you guys for that. Now let's dive into the thing that is the top of the mind for everybody during this March Madness. Donald Trump signed earlier today an executive order that, once again, doing that balancing act. You don't like what I'm doing internationally? Get rid of the Department of Education.
Yeah.
Or just like all those people that we talked to.
School's out forever.
You remember those indivisible people we spoke with? They all were like, he's going to get rid of the Department of Education. So it's the Project 2025. Their nightmare is coming true in their eyes.
He's filling it with racism.
The Department of Racism will be taking over the building. Stephen Miller, get in there. He directed Education Secretary Linda McMahon, the pro wrestling wife, to begin eliminating the Department of Education in favor of leaving the decision-making up to individual states. Some programs, such as special needs, so this is interesting because one of the main ones that the people we spoke with from Indivisible were worried was going to get taken out was special need programs. But here, Trump in the EO said that special needs and student loan programs will be preserved and eventually rehomed in other departments. So that's great. People can still get their student loans that will burden them for an entire lifetime. At least we have preserved that.
We need that.
Absolutely. What's up, Force Mommy? Terminator Mommy. That's one of your alter egos, right? Terminator, mommy. Oh, thank you, Forrest, mommy. I've been trying to pump some iron. That's right. I'm wearing my Georgia Tech jersey in honor of UGA losing tonight. So it's the only win a Georgia Tech fan can get. Why I'm wearing the jersey here for March Madness. I thought we could get a couple of opposing perspectives on Trump's EO. Obviously, this doesn't mean the Department of Education is gone. This is an instruction to start dismantling. And what you want to watch out for is what will be rehomed and where under a different name. Let's start with the alarming indivisible email I got right after this executive order was signed and Trump showed it off from Ezra and Lee. Oh, my God, he did it. And then call to action. It's always fun to hear from these crazy people. Here, let me show you. I'm starting to appreciate these two weirdos just because of their consistency to nothing but alarmism. Like, I imagine everything that they encounter in their life, if there is somebody watching them, like they're in their role of indivisible leader, they find alarming. They could go to a dry cleaner and be like,
what do you think their Google reviews are like?
Their Google reviews personally?
Yeah. They're the ones that they leave. Like the ones what do you think the 1-star reviews are like?
I tried to get my suit dry cleaned, but Nazis took over, and look at this stain. Yeah. Democracy dies in darkness. Like every single time. 1-star review. You're right, though. People who always leave nothing but negative reviews are the people who are probably part of these groups who they go into every situation looking for a reason to hate it. Oh,
yeah.
It's like buying something on Amazon and you click on the 1-star reviews and it's like, oh, the package was too hard to get open.
Those fucking people in fear. I don't care if the box was dented.
Instructions were not good, so it's like you're stupid and you can't figure out how to put it together.
Exactly.
Is what that
Everyone knows that the instructions are a YouTube video these days. Go find it.
You had the right idea. Is you look at the 3-star reviews.
Yeah.
On a product.
You look at the 3-star reviews. Yeah.
I will never forget when I was trying to look for a secure crate for Edmund that he couldn't just rip apart a couple years ago, and I almost bought this crate that had thousands and thousands of reviews. It was like a 4.8
highly suspicious
review
already.
Right. And so I clicked on some of the lower reviews, and one guy was like, yeah, this killed my dog because he did this. And I was like, oh my God. And it was a legit story because they replied to it and they were like, well, we're trying to upgrade this. We're so sorry.
Okay, first of all, why did they reply to it? Oh, that's crazy.
Right, yeah, they acknowledged it. They should have just been like, yeah, show us proof, okay? Atrocity propaganda is what they should have done. Thank you, Stoner. We appreciate that. That's
coming along.
Thank you very, very much. I've been eating a lot of, what's it called? The Fat Shack lately for the white nationalist colonizers flag. I'm really saving up a lot of money for that. They're almost as expensive as eggs, those white nationalist colonizing flags are. So here's the email. From Ezra.
Moon.
It's a little too big there. All right. So I'm not going to read all of it, just some of the more interesting parts here. Make that smaller. All right. Indivisible. Brad, today Donald Trump signed an executive order that eliminates the Department of Education. Emphasis on aims to eliminate. He can't unilaterally abolish a federal department by Congress. Let's be clear about what this executive order will do. It instructs the Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon, to facilitate, that's what we already said. And then they're serious when they get to the bold section of the email. Yeah. He goes, Trump's goal here is to weaken the department and thus public education, starve it of resources, and scatter its programs to other agencies so that congressional Republicans can claim that the Department of Education is functionally obsolete and fire the kill shot with legislation abolishing the Department of E.
They've been arguing out of both sides of their mouth on this one. On the one hand, they say he's going to get rid of the Department of Education and kill public schools. On the other hand, they keep talking about how little money the Department of Education actually uses to fund state schools. They keep talking out both sides of their mouth on this one. You gotta get them and wring the necks, Brad.
Absolutely. I want to welcome Cam to the chat. Cam says your tank top look better in black. Cam, I wear our Black Tank Top Club shirt quite frequently on the show. It's very, very brings a tear to my eye. I miss you very much, Cam. We will have you on the show very soon if you're willing to do it. So then it goes on, and they tell you, what would eliminating the Department of Education mean for students, teachers, and families? And this is according to Indivisible. They say, this is where they say, here's what these evil Nazis actually really are intending. Without the Department of Education, millions of students and... No, wait, that's the wrong part. Sorry, Ron. It's why do Republicans want to do this shit? Why are Republicans so eager to eliminate it? That is exactly what it is. The conservative obsession with eliminating the Department of Education is as old as the department itself.
So
and
like 30,
it's like 35, 50
years.
Whatever. Yeah.
50 years old.
And it's a central pillar of Project 2025. Opposition to the department is not monolithic. So you see that. And
oh,
it's
my God. It really is real deeply racist within the third sentence.
Right. No, you're right. I love the way they did this, though. It's not monolithic, so they try to express reason. Yeah, maybe it's not all bad, but actually they're just going to explain the diverse ways that it's racist and awful. There's a deeply racist strain that opposes the department's civil rights protections and efforts to desegregate education.
All things done long before the Department of Education was created.
Right. Totally. There's a related Christian nationalist strain that opposes secular education and longs to see funding directed towards religious institutions. And the Trump administration is staffed with extreme ideologues who've long
I'm going to name my Christian nationalist metal band Strain.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's good. Do you have a Christian nationalist metal band?
If anyone out there, let's put one together. We can get one started tonight.
Stephen Miller's a good front man for that. It doesn't help Trump that Stephen Miller looks exactly like what they say that he is.
Crusader would be a good one. Crusader.
So the administration they oppose the secular education and longs to see the funding directed towards religious institutions, and it's staffed with these ideologues who are self-professed these views and have spent decades seeding the ground for this move, decades. The executive order, and this is in bold, aligns with the broader conservative strategy to dismantle federal oversight in favor of state control. That's actually great, allowing red states to defund public education with few guardrails. But there's another glaringly obvious explanation. What's that say? Undergirds?
That undergirds.
Undergird. What does that mean? Undergirds.
It's it supports it. It's the thing that you don't see that supports it. It undergirds it. The structure of a bridge.
Okay.
Underneath it, it's.
Yeah, I would say.
It's
a word that I think pretentious people use. Honestly,
it is,
and that would fit with this. It undergirds.
That's why I know what it means, Brad.
So many of the administration's policies to date. Billionaires see a way to make some money. So Trump, Musk, and their billionaire cronies want to slash funding for public schools so they can lower their own taxes and cash in by starting for-profit schools. Who will write the curricula for these schools? Why, other right-wing billionaires will! !
You think right-wing billionaires are just trying to write school curriculum?
That's their scheme. They're like, I can't wait till Trump gets in so we can write school curriculum for Christian national. Everybody gets a hood day one in these new schools that are going to make them a lot of profit. Yeah. And so this is the action. They create the alarmism. Then they say, what can you do?
1 + 1 = white power.
Right. What can you do? And they say, you can send this email. And then it's always clickable, right? So if you click on this, and I did over here. I showed this the other day on the show with Sam and Austin. But it goes over here. It demand Republicans take a stand, and then you go down here, and you don't have to do anything. The email to your Republican members of Congress, and it's all written for you, every word of it. And the email ends. I'm not going to read it. I'll just read the end. It ends with, "I expect a clear answer," to the Republican member of Congress. It's like, I talked to some of these people the other day. And they all had the same signs, and it doesn't even dawn on them that they're drones copying and pasting messages that somebody else created that they've not thought of or, considered themselves because
Brad,
they think it's the fastest way to resist.
It's the same thing like my church will do or something. They'll send out an email with a prayer that you can copy and paste, and it's very sweet when they do it. But it just also illustrates, I think, the tactics that these guys are using.
Totally.
They work just like a religious organization.
Right.
Just like a church, man.
Yeah.
The color scheme, everything reminds me of church.
It's a cult, this thing is. So then you go down and they have, you can also call. So first thing tomorrow morning, call. And you click on that one, and it's the same thing. But what this one does is you put in your name. I did it the other day, and your phone number and your address. And once you click that, it pops onto screen a script that scrolls, and your phone rings, and it connects you directly to that member of Congress without you having to dial a digit.
Wow.
And you just read it from that screen. Now, how they respond to it, I don't know. It might be a little awkward if you stick to script too much. And then they say, make a lot of noise this week. This is the third action. Every member of Congress is at home, and we need them to hear how pissed off we are. So go at Trump and Musk lawless attacks and find an event, and then you click on the event page, and there it is. All these events here. You can click and see where people are doing shit in your area. Like actually this afternoon at Kennesaw State University, there was a Stop Elon Musk. Is that it? Oh, that's actually
lots of these great maps where you can just zero in on your opponents and go harass them.
You remember the one the other day that had the Molotov
map?
cocktail Tesla ones?
That was hilarious.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. So, which way? That's right. Which way? It's like over there, I think. No, I have an amplifier. It's one of those filters. I'm actually, I weigh 98 pounds. I am very, very skinny and pale most of the time. So, Cam, I want to respond here. I did listen to your message, and I didn't hear you say anything about coming to Georgia. All I heard you say something about was STDs and very dirty, weird, not weird, but funny stuff. So I'm not even going to repeat it. But if you're going to be in Georgia, Cam, I would love to see you, and we should do a show together when you're there. I weigh about 170, Forrest Mommy. Thank you, Poston. I appreciate that. Bringing sexy back. I shower to that song. All right. So the indivisible, it's persistent, and I continue to say it is useful.
Yeah.
Some of their resources. And moving on to the next story. Wait, I forgot to play on Stephen Miller, given the perspective. We got to give multiple perspectives here. This is what he told Fox News.
Well, as we know, the Department of Education here in Washington, D.C. is overwhelmingly staffed by radical left Marxist bureaucrats who are in every way hostile to Western civilization, hostile to American interests, and hostile to our founding documents and culture. And so they are using their position and influence inside the Department of Education to try to force agendas like radical gender ideology, like critical race theory, like diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all kinds of anti-America curricula and policies on the American people, on our students, on our children. So it's taking away from parents the ability to control and direct the education of their own kids, of their own families. So what we're going to do under President Trump's leadership and direction is to return that authority to the greatest extent possible to the local level.
That's great.
Where parents can control outcomes, while at the same time making sure that no federal funds are used to support racism, to support gender ideology, or support other ideas and principles that are offensive to the American taxpayer.
So, I'm all for that. If that's the actual truth behind it, I think that's fantastic.
Well, yeah, I think it sounds great.
And that really is. He who controls the history, and I would add the curriculum for young people, is going to control the future. And if we have the Department of Education and some of these programs, I've seen some of these misinformation, disinformation programs that the content of the education that they give to some public schools, in Georgia at least, and the the assumptions in the content is the same as the assumptions made by like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times in their articles, which is like Trump definitely led an insurrection. And now so even content that's like literature or grammar, not even focused on misinformation, actually. It's like Trump led an insurrection on this date. Where are the commas in the wrong place? You know what I mean? Like stuff like that, very deceptive. But then they have the misinformation portals in some of these schools, which teaches basically don't trust any sources outside of verified authorities like the New York Times and others. So that's the type of stuff that needs to be out of the school system.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they get really concerned. I mean, I think that should be out of the school system as much as corporate influence should be out of the school system. It's great. Look, if Microsoft wants to donate a bunch of computers to the school, great. But, you know, you get a tax write-off. That's what you get.
Right.
You don't get to tell kids what they learn.
No, you don't get to release malaria mosquitoes and genetically engineered by Bill Gates inside the school. Right. Bill Gates, dude, that guy. Okay, so
right.
Right. Bill Gates, am I right?
Bill Gates,
yeah.
fucking dork.
You guys heard of Bill Gates, right?
That's what I don't understand about guys like that. They get $1 billion. What motivates them to continue to work?
A mannish woman
dude, if you
that
put
he married.
$50,000 in my bank account, I would stupidly quit my job tomorrow and just go, I'll figure something out before this money runs out.
Well, he's probably compromised. That's probably what he is. You know, I used to make fun of his ex-wife, Belinda Gates, I believe is that her name? Because she...
Melinda.
Is it Melinda?
Melinda.
It's not Belinda? Whatever.
No, it's Bill and Melinda.
I thought it was...
Not Mill
so
and
that's
Belinda.
his combination. That's their power couple name, Belinda.
Yeah.
She looked a bit mannish, but then the story was that they got divorced because she told him not to hang out with Jeffrey Epstein and stuff, and he continued to talk to him. Have you ever seen the clip of him being asked about going to dinners and humoring Jeffrey Epstein after Jeffrey Epstein had not before people knew about him, after.
Yeah.
And he's like, it was a bad I shouldn't have done it. And then he just says nothing else. Right? Guess that was dumb. Yes, I do, Stoner. It's a bit of a man bun.
It's too bad. His Instagram page used to be one I would go to all the time just to scroll through the comments, but he shut them all off years ago.
Right.
Oh, God, it was so good. So
Cosmic Cowboy says, my son in the 11th grade was just talking about deportations as a topic in his humanities class, and it's surprisingly a pretty center and unbiased presentation of the data. That's fantastic. I hear similar reports in red areas in Georgia anyway, and Fulton County, people I know, it's like night and day different.
Yeah, San Diego's I think that's a fairly conservative place, though, in California, isn't it? Am I wrong? I don't know.
I don't know.
Let me know.
I don't know. It's beautiful out there, from what I hear. I don't think I've ever been to San Diego. But I've seen AI pictures, so I know what it is. So
it's almost an island, though. Rhode Island's almost. Sorry, I'm getting into these comments here.
Yeah. Red City, military town. So on a similar note, we don't have any revelations about Jeffrey Epstein, but we did have 3 arrests were made of the
domestic terrorist arrests.
Well, I don't know if they are identified as that officially, but people who were arsons to some of the Tesla vehicles around the country. And this is the
domestic terrorists.
It's just a little bit of spray paint and arsons all in. We've all shot some fireworks where we shouldn't have shot them. What's the difference? It hits a Tesla and it comes from a beer bottle.
Driven backwards down a street in the middle of Atlanta.
We've all, yeah, right. Absolutely. With one of our friends on top of the car after pointing weapons at each other.
We've all done that.
So it says here, Attorney General Pam Bondi, who, by the way, Pam Bondi does not look anything like the photos. Every photo of her, she looks like a sorority girl who just turned 40. A little bit of filtering and makeup going on. Her makeup and hair, people, are fantastic. She's a 60-year-old woman, and
I think
she
she's
looks
holding up really well for 60.
Of course, I'm not saying she's ugly. I'm just saying it's a bit of an illusion.
I hope I'm as pretty as Pam Bondi when I'm 60.
I see these images of Pam Bondi. I'm like, oh my damn! She looks like a chick you want to like. You're ashamed to go talk to because she's so. She's not. She's a pretty lady for her age, prettier than probably a lot of people her age. Aging gracefully, but they just do her up every appearance.
Do. I mean, like you saw the way they would do up Kamala, right? The way all her photos were touched up.
Yeah, even they touched up all the wine bottles to make them look like
like they weren't there.
They pour
Look like
water
they were-
in there,
yeah.
so it looked. Yeah, they Photoshop them out of there.
Yeah.
Hit that like button.
Turn them into cats.
Yeah, she's sucking on a cat in some of her photos. It says here that today, Attorney General Pam Bondi announced charges against 3 individuals responsible for the violent. I can't see it. Can you? See? I don't even have it on the screen.
The
That's
violent
probably the
domestic
problem.
terrorism.
Hold on, I can't see that well enough. There it is.
Yeah.
For the announced charges against 3 individuals responsible for the violent destruction of Tesla properties. All 3 defendants will face the full force of the law for using Molotov cocktails to set fire to Tesla cars and charging stations. Now, that website that I showed y'all last week, or earlier this week, I think, that was linked on that Doge website where they were identifying and doxing Tesla owners, the one that had all the, when you go to prison, this is what you do, here are the resources, like the Antifa, the violent type of direct action stuff.
Yeah.
So that's where people learn Molotov cocktail stuff. It's not surprising. They are
When
taught
I was a
to
kid,
use
you had
these.
to find a copy of the Anarchist Cookbook.
Right. Now they just feed it
Now they just tell you.
into your anarchist Antifa type website. And I've gone through a lot of those resources before, like a couple of years ago on the show. They're well beyond the indivisible resources, and they're encouraging direct violent action by people probably like this. These poor people are probably patsies who they're not going to save them. They committed this act. They'll probably go to prison for a good bit of time. Their life will be messed up for a while. And the people who compelled them to do it don't give a rat's ass and are profiting off of this. It continues. The days of committing crimes without consequence have ended. So I hear Pam Bondi talking. The days of committing crimes without consequence. I just imagine a sorority leader saying that, said Pam Bondi. Let this be a warning. If you join the wave of domestic terrorism against Tesla properties, the Department of Justice will put you behind bars. One defendant was also armed with an AR-15 rifle. Another was arrested in Loveland, Colorado. Loveland, not so loving for that person. After attempting to light Teslas on fire with Molotov cocktails, they were later found in possession of materials used to produce additional incendiary devices. In Charleston, South Carolina, a third wrote profane messages against President Trump around Tesla charging station. Before it was like, I don't like Trump's hair, I think is what he spray painted and then lit it on fire. Each defendant faces serious charges carrying a minimum of 5 years and up to 20 years in prison. So those are the examples that are being made. And, wow. I make fun of Indivisible a lot, and they should be made fun of. And they do incite people to be crazy. But I'll say this. I went to 2 Indivisible protests last week, acting like one of them. The people at those protests are in their 70s and 80s. They might be spontaneously bleeding from their legs and have things on their teeth, and it's gross. They aren't lighting Molotov cocktails. They're just a little bit. They don't have anything to do.
I think that this Molotov cocktail stuff could be right-wing provocateurs as well. It could be.
It could be.
It could be a lot of different people. It's not me.
It's not me either. And to your point, there is. Where is that? There was there's a. I think I X'd it out, but I was just once I started looking into the JFK files. Whenever I start going into old CIA documents and declassified stuff, I always go down rabbit holes because there are so many interesting documents on not just the National Archive website, but especially on the CIA.gov website. And I told people on the show yesterday, if you're bored and you just want to search for something interesting, go to CIA.gov, or actually type in site, SITE, CIA.gov, and then put in quotations whatever you want to search. And it will search exclusively on the CIA website. And along with that, put in quotes next to whatever you search, PDF. And there will be a long list of PDFs that are returned that are usually declassified documents. And it's fun to kind of just think of crazy things and see if it shows up, because oftentimes it does. And that can send you down a rabbit hole. And that's what I was doing the other night. And I was reading about all these, like Project Resistance is the name of one of them, where the CIA, on the premise of we're trying to stop international terror, we are going to infiltrate anti-war protesters in Washington, D.C., because we think they're being influenced by international terrorists, which is very similar to what we hear nowadays when it comes to the January 6 people, which I've always thought they're going to tie them to the international terrorists, which I think they could do here with the pro-Palestinian green card people that they're deporting. Just make them one and the same, giving the CIA a reason to operate domestically.
Yeah, I guess, you know, not to get in on that tangent, but I guess the people with the green cards, I'm sorry, maybe I'm in the minority, but I don't give as much of a shit about them
I honestly,
being told to shut up.
I recognize the ability to broaden and apply that elsewhere. I also recognize that guy is an operative for the British. And he's scheduled to speak at SEPA, which is an organization that is very similar to the USAID and Victoria Nuland, the bitch who brags about provocateuring the 2014 conflict in Ukraine, is one of the people tied to this who's also going to be speaking at SEPA. That's why I don't think the guy's going anywhere, and if he does, he's coming back, because in June, he's scheduled to give a presentation in Washington, D.C. at SEPA, and don't want to miss that date. We'll see, though. Maybe if he doesn't speak at that, I will be surprised. But, no, it's just this, the government has never proven itself to not limit its powers. And so Saul Alinsky has a term for this in his book, Rules for Radicals. It slips my mind right now. But basically, it's this idea that you say you're doing one thing, but the actual purpose are the side effects of that thing. We're actually trying to achieve these negative side effects, but what's acceptable to the people is the purpose we tell them.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is what we need to do. And
well, they're fighting over I think what's happening now is fighting over the narrative of what America is.
Right. Yeah,
There's a lot of fighting over that narrative right now.
That's very, very true. And I'll say this. Force Mommy, I was talking to her on Twitter earlier about this. She posted about, have you noticed at Starbucks that more normal people seem to be working there when you show up? And actually, yes, I have noticed that.
I know, because all the trannies have moved over to McDonald's.
Right. They're over there at McDonald's, or they've been deported. Maybe they've been deported. They've had their tranny cards revoked.
The 6'2" guy with purple fingernails, like really nice long fingernails, they gave me my iced coffee today.
They just scraped your muffin while they're giving it to you. Oh, sorry about that. It's dirty as hell.
Mussed up the top of my head. He's like,
right.
You have a good day, cutie.
I've also noticed at Starbucks, when you used to go through there, up until like a week ago when I first started noticing this, and you pay at the drive-thru and you stick your card in. This is why I stopped going for a long time. They would go, oh, there's just one question that you have to ask there. And it shows the tip thing where it's like, do you tip $1, $2, or do you have to look at this pink-haired weirdo and push no tip and watch them scoff at you and do God knows what to your drink?
I'm sorry, I can't read. Could you tell me what the question is, please?
Yeah, and so that was the insulting part of it, is that they acted like they didn't know what it was.
Yeah,
and
we're not allowed to look at the question. I have to inform you that there is one.
Yeah, I've never seen the question.
Never seen the question. I'll get fired if I know what the question is.
Yeah. That's why I started paying in cash when I went there, and I shit you not, I got scoffed at multiple times when I pulled out cash.
Oh, this guy, a cash guy.
If they'd have actually been nice, I would have tipped them. Like, I'm a good tipper.
I'll pay in cash. I'll
Yeah.
pay in cash sometime. And a lot of times, what they'll do, the teller will go, "Oh, can you?" They'll be pointing at the ATM machine. They'll go, "Hey, you have to click that cancel button," because they just assume that I'm gonna swipe a card.
Right. We're responsible for clicking the. Yeah. No, it's
$15 for coffee, Brad.
what I noticed though. The past 2 times I went, they didn't say, "Can you click that?" Just answer that question. They said, "Oh, here's the tip thing. Can you do the?" Almost dismissive of it. I feel like there's been a top-down initiative to phase that out, and I would be very, very happy if they stopped doing that.
Years and years ago, when I was a trainer at Starbucks, Brad, and years and years ago, I will say that they could only take cash tips. You were not allowed to get tips on for credit card or debit card usage, and the company was really against it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's kind of stupid. Yeah.
Kat says he tips in nickels. Or she tips in nickels.
That's the way to do it.
That's the way. You know. That's how you bring just a bag of pennies to the strip club. Just toss those. You know, maybe a silver dollar up there.
Yeah.
Of course, I would never do that.
Doubloons. I bring in rare Spanish pirate doubloons is what I bring in.
That's how you know you have a really talented stripper. If she can snatch those quarters out of thin air with her, crevices. Wow. Yeah. Then I'll get the dollars out when that happens.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, it's interesting what's going on with the Tesla stuff, because it is. People are. I was going to rent a Tesla for us to go to the Libertarian thing if there was one close by. Going to Tennessee in a couple weeks for the Third Eye Carnival, I'm not going to rent a Tesla just because of the heightened animosity being directed towards it. I'm like, I don't want to
Brad,
deal with
you're
that.
part of the problem too. Then you need to get a Tesla.
I should be doing it, yeah,
and fucking fly an American flag from it and be fucking proud about it.
Right.
Say, I dare you to fuck with my Tesla.
Right. Yeah. Just fly a Klan hood and just drive, given the Nazis. One of the people at the Indivisible rally that I went to this past Saturday with Jake and Zach, she told me, after I asked her if she thought Elon was a Nazi, which obviously, yes, she does.
Yeah, of course.
She said, and this is a 72-year-old woman who really thought Zach was sexy and wanted to bring Zach to her kid's birthday party to make her MAGA 72-year-old ex-husband jealous. It was very, very funny. That part was. But she told me, I was trying to pimp Zach out, that somebody, I was like, have you had any pushback today? And she said, yeah, there's people who's been driving by and doing the Heil Hitler salute. I'm like, while they're driving, they're heiling Hitler? She's like, yeah. It's like, it must be in a Tesla, because you can't Heil Hitler unless you're in a self-driving automobile.
In their world, they think that just simmering under the surface of America, ready to boil over, is a Nazi revolution. All the Nazis,
Heils, yeah.
When World War II ended, you have to understand the Nazis they absorbed into the American Republican Party, okay?
Right.
Where they lied in wait for 2025, for the right moment. And that's why Musk can't stop.
That's why these mustaches are coming. It's like a reflex.
Are coming back.
Yeah.
It's a reflex. It's just manifesting.
I go in the Indivisible when they do their live trainings. I go in the chats and I start typing, I think my neighbor's a Nazi. What should I do about it?
Jeez. Well, first of all, report him.
Yeah, right. They're like, here's your email to send to the police to say about it. And dox them. All right. Okay, so it's called Project Merrimack, actually, is what I was going to tell you about, which is a domestic espionage operation coordinated under the Office of Secretary of the CIA, and it involved getting information from infiltrating and getting information and surveilling Washington-based anti-war groups that might pose potential threats to the CIA. It's great. And the data they gathered included general information on infrastructure of targeted communities and it had a twin program, the one I mentioned earlier, called Project Resistance, and they were both coordinated by the CIA, obviously, and they were a branch of operations that relayed civilian information to the parent program, Operation Chaos. It's just so interesting because they're supposed to only be operating internationally, so they have to do all these tricks to justify international threats so that they can infiltrate and pretend to be because that's what they did in these things. They pretended to be the anti-war protesters, which goes back to these movements are always going to have some freaking infiltrators, dude. Need a Brad and Ian live from Atlanta Waffle House at 3 a.m. I would love
That would be amazing
to do that.
Holy shit. Because we could find some really good. We could find a really good Waffle House.
Yeah, we get maybe Kid Rock shows up, fights somebody. Lauren Boebert's
We could
there.
find a pretty rowdy Waffle House at 3 a.m. in Atlanta.
Absolutely. I think he was at the one on near. He was at one near Buckhead, is what he.
Oh yeah.
Wild Bill's Smoke Shop, says Steve down the street from him. That place is a circus. All the trans work there at Wild Bill's Smoke Shop. And they have the green hair linebacker size dude says hello so loudly when you enter. That is a bit startling to have a linebacker the size of green hair. Hello.
It's all like the John Lithgow character from World According to Garp.
I just want a man to take care of me. Yeah. Did you see the clip from White Lotus of Sam Rockwell? The one everybody praised?
No,
that's the greatest thing ever. Give him the Oscar now. Do you know what it's about?
No, I don't know what it's about.
In the clip, Sam Rockwell's character, this is a cameo. He's not in the show until now.
Oh.
Tells Goggins, whatever that other actor's name is, that he dresses up. He wants to be an Asian prostitute, and so he dresses up as an Asian girl, and he pays people who look like him when he's normal to gangbang him. And he also pays an Asian girl to sit in front so he can watch the Asian girl while he's dressed up as her, getting banged by people like him because he wants to be her, getting gangbanged by himself. That's the scene. And this is the greatest scene that's ever been produced, according to the internet.
That's so sad because I really enjoy Sam Rockwell's work. He's I would say probably easily in my top 25.
He's a good actor, yeah.
He's a good actor. He really is.
Would you accept that role? Ian, we have a great role for you in White Lotus.
No. This is why I pretty much stopped auditioning too, is because you just. I would turn down roles like that. I would literally. This is what I would write to. This is what I'd write back to my agent. I would say, "Yeah, no thanks. I'm not interested in portraying characters that display that point of view."
Culturally,
and then I would say,
that.
"Regards, Ian."
Thank you for the audition, though. You would.
Yeah.
You would write MBA beneath there.
Yeah, MBA. Regards, Ian. MBA.
Bachelor of Arts.
Bachelor of Arts. Bachelor of Arts.
Yeah. Yeah, there was an article. I talked about this last night a little bit, but it was a New York Post article that had a picture of Sam Rockwell with his wife, and she looked like encouraging and smiley, and he looked kind of like, unsure. And the article was about how his wife said that at first he was unsure about the role. Well, of course he's unsure about that role.
And you...
encouraged
a terrible wife that you are.
Right. What is that?
Encouraged him instead of saying, "Yes, Sam, this is a terrible fucking idea.
Totally,
Don't do
dude.
this. Just find. There's gonna shows. You're Sam Rockwell. You don't need to do this.
Your method. Let's get some guys over here that look like you, dress you up like a girl, and see how it works. He also talked about banging ladyboys in the scene.
Yeah, you should see the movie Choke. That's a good one.
What is that about?
That's funny. That's a good Sam Rockwell movie. I don't want to give anything away. He's a sex addict and a con artist that works at Williamsburg, the historical reenactment place.
Oh, yeah.
The colonial town.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah.
I like him in Matchstick Man with Nick Cage Nick Cage, their con artist. Nick Cage has OCD, and he plays. I think is that Matchstick Man? Is that what that is?
I haven't seen that.
It's a really good movie. I love Nick Cage. I think Brad needs a late '90s tribal tattoo.
Get a henna one. See how it works.
Yeah, maybe give it. Yeah, give it. But what if it
You
wears
don't have
off?
any tattoos. I don't have any tattoos.
Nah, well,
I was gonna get one, and then I heard that they give you cancer. I heard that like there's a big chance now. There's like a.
Well, some of them make you fly though, so it's like a balance. You get wings tattooed. That's what they need to do. Anytime they want people to get a shot or anything.
What would you get? What kind of tattoo would you get?
Probably get a dot. Period.
Just a dot. Come on.
Maybe
Just
a comma somewhere. Yeah.
Just a little comma.
It's under my arm. Just a little comma.
What kind of tattoo? You've never thought about it? You've never been like.
I thought about getting a tattoo when I lived in Chicago once. When my friend that I hung out with all the time there, who was from Texas, and we were never more redneck than we were in Chicago because people responded to our Southern accent. So we talk like this, all give me some sweet tea, and they're like, "Oh my God, look at their voices. What are you drinking? Sweet tea?" Like, yeah, we just down home up here, and blah blah blah. Yeah, they loved it. And there was one night because you can stay up all night in Chicago, and one night we were like, we should go get tattoos, and we were taught. We got on the L train, we went over there. We're on the way over there, and we're like, "What are you gonna get?" And I was like, "I'm gonna get State Georgia tattooed on my arm," which is the dumbest thing ever. He's like, "I'll get Texas." I'm like, we were committed to doing this. Thank God, the tattoo parlor wasn't open at 4 a.m.
That's hilarious.
It was up until 3. I just thank God we did not.
Yeah.
An Acuna tattoo from the Braves. All right, so this is probably the last thing we'll do here. When I was doing the research on the JFK stuff, I will tell you guys how to search the JFK stuff also, like I promised in the show title. Can you see that? Is that up there? No, it's not.
Not yet.
No. All right.
It is.
So I stumbled upon one of these documents that it's a CIA.gov that I found this one. And it's called The Psychology of Dirty Tricks. And this is a sanitized copy approved for release. In 2017 is when this one was released. And it's interesting. So this is a 2-page interview with a guy who had left the CIA after a 12-year career. His name is John Stockwell. He left the CIA in 1976, started in 1964. I don't know if he's still alive, but he wrote a book expressing his concerns about the methods the CIA used internationally and the results that they went for, describing them as paramilitary operations in third world countries. And this is what he talked about in this interview, which is titled The Psychology of Dirty Tricks. I'm just going to read the interview because it's not long and there's a lot of interesting tidbits in here. Neil Hoffman is the guy who interviewed him. John Stockwell belongs to the select company of former Central Intelligence operatives who have gone public with shocking revelations about the CIA murders and dirty tricks around the world. Stockwell, a striking, well-built man in his early 40s, might not wear the trench coat and fedora of the classic film spy, but he does look like someone who would be at home in difficult and dangerous situations. Born and raised in Africa. Interesting. He spent 19 years as a Marine and 12 in the CIA. On orders from his superiors, he fabricated intelligence reports in Vietnam and in Angola, where he acted as station chief for the agency's covert operations. In 1978, after quitting the agency, he published his book, In Search of Enemies, a CIA Story, a lucid and personal account of his role in the CIA, and more particularly in Angola. Today, he spends his time largely as a writer and powerful lecturer on the abuses of his one-time employer. Neil Hoff, so here's the interview part. What led you to leave the CIA? John Stockwell. I went into the CIA thinking that I was doing the best thing I could with my life. The contradiction being that I was a humanist at heart. But their propaganda line is that you're serving humanity by struggling to keep the world free from communism. It just took a lot of years of making my way up the chain of command until I became convinced that the opposite was true. I saw it in Africa, but in Africa I was working out of the embassies. The inhumanity was clearer. Then I saw it in Vietnam, where there was no doubt. And at that point, I was totally disillusioned. I felt like my soul had been fucked. Literally everything I had been taught to believe in, I realized was untrue about my government. Then they offered me a position at the National Security Council. It's going to get real good here in a second. And a subcommittee managing from a global point of view, the covert action targeting in Angola. I accepted the job because it would give me a chance to see from inside what was at the root of all of this horror. Would it make sense if you were really inside? So I took the job just like making a deal with the devil, and worked hard so I would have access to every bloody piece of paper, conversation, and whatever had anything to do with my program. I found it even more cynical than you would ever dream. Meeting after meeting, 170 meetings discussing what lies to tell to the American people, what lies to tell to Congress, what lies to tell to the president, even what lies to tell to each other, and never ever any conception of telling the truth to the people of Congress. There wasn't even a twitch of honesty in the thing. I mean, nobody walked in joking one day and said, hey, why don't we tell the truth this just for once, just for fun? And then Hoffman says, how would you describe the extent of the CIA's reach around the world? Stockwell says, these case officers are working tirelessly, long hours, highly motivated, and there's a hell of a lot of killing. I count over 1 million people that have died in the first echelon of violence in the CIA agitated covert operations. People that would not have died if the CIA had not been there doing its thing. Then you have the Vietnam War tracks directly, and CIA covert action, Cambodia. Then he defines destabilization down here. Destabilization.
I'm going to look more into this.
It's interesting.
Keep going. Yeah.
Destabilization, which the CIA has done in dozens and dozens of countries, is not fun. It's not nice guy stuff. It means by definition that you upset the economic and social balance of the country, so it does not work. So the people can't make a living, so they don't dare send their children to school, so the hospitals are full of wounded people instead of sick, and money is spent on arms instead of hospitals and schools and social projects. So the numbers of people who have suffered from the CIA destabilization, had their lives deeply affected in a negative way, are literally in the tens of millions of people. All of this is allegedly in defense of the U.S. national security. It's always what they do. And now he goes into a little bit of the psychology here in a second. The national security aspect is obviously just a big lie. Remember that term? Very familiar. To justify what these CIA operatives want to do in their war against the world. It's fun. It's enchanting. It's deeply exciting to be a spy and have an unlimited budget and have no moral or legal constraints. You can do anything you want to do around the world, killing, experimenting on people with drugs, inciting wars, overthrowing governments, shafting enemies, blackmail, bribery, poisoning crops. And it's not a felony because overseas, if you're caught, you have no fear of ever going to jail. Diplomatic immunity protects you, and you just fly back home, and in the U.S., it's national security. Any thoughts so far?
This is insane.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me really curious. I want to know more about this. I don't know anything about I've never heard anything about this.
He goes on to say it's very significant to understand that CIA case officers tend to feel or at least act very self-righteous about what they do. Part of the reason they do that is by believing or pretending to believe their own party lines. What makes this work in part is that you operate from an embassy context. Big, beautiful villas, servants, embassy office, embassy country team meetings, lunches and dinners at ambassadors' houses, and gorgeous gardens with flowers and swimming pools. You work with Contra leaders. You're giving them money so they have houses and whatnot. You're working with the police in El Salvador, for example. Well, the world tends to see these things through the press, the police, the death squads in El Salvador as horrible things, which they are. On a one-to-one basis, however, you don't see the horror. You just see educated people who are educated at Fort Bragg which there's so many controversies at Fort Bragg of mind control stuff, shootings. One happened earlier. That guy who blew himself up in the cyber truck on January 1st.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Fort Bragg guy.
Yeah.
Always Fort Bragg. Who is educated at Fort Bragg, who drive around in a Mercedes and live very well, whose sons go to UCLA with your own sons. All very glamorous, very friendly, very sociable, very nice guy stuff. An overlapping community of elite, far away, and above the killing. The way the case officers will protect their own conscience from the killing is you deliver a load of arms, say bombs, say white phosphorus grenades, to a Contra commander. Now, anyone would know that these are going to blow up and burn civilians. But you do it as you deliver them. You give him a lecture and warn him that they're only going to be used against the bad guys, basically, the Sandinista forces. Okay, you go back into the office and you write a memo saying, and I told him under the strictest possible terms that they should under no circumstances be used against civilians. And then when the next week civilians are killed with some of these grenades thrown into a schoolhouse or something, you may decide not to believe it and say it's exaggerated. Or you may put some propaganda out and say that they were really killed by the Sandistas and then choose to believe that. Or you might kick a door and yell and storm out of the office for 5 minutes saying, God damn it, I told those bastards. It's not my fault. My president tells me to do this. I'm faithful, patriotic American citizen. I do my duty, but I made my position crystal clear in this. So the self-justification he's talking about here. Now this sounds far-fetched, but it doesn't sound far-fetched to me. But it actually works, and he makes an interesting comment about the public here in a second. But it actually works, and they use these games self-supporting and supporting each other. The attacks, the horror on what they're doing, the way it's written and presented in the press. They just don't read those stories, or they'll read them and slam them down and say, that's communist bullshit. I know that Captain so-and-so is a nice man. My son's going to UCLA with his son. Just absolutely shed it off, and it doesn't sink in. But it does sink in with some. There are plenty who are more intelligent and perceptive and get out with great sense of disillusionment. Some of them, 18 or so, have gotten out and gone public, but 18 or so people, not age.
Right.
But by and large, most of them are able to assuage their conscience. Even the disillusioned spook is a syndrome. The disillusioned spook is a syndrome in our society. That's interesting. Hollywood has a way that you play that, as in the movies. At the end of the movie, you put on your trench coat and you walk off in the fog, and the cynicism is unchanged, and you take over your own private life and you go somewhere and nurse your wounds. But Hoffman says, but you don't become an activist? And Stockwell says, no, that isn't Hollywood, the Hollywood line. It doesn't recommend that solution. The 3 days of Condor did have Robert Redford walking into the New York Times with his story. That is the way the movie ended. But by and large, if you walk into the New York Times with a story like that, they'll throw you out. That's true. Then Hoffman says, what information do you have about current CIA activity in Central America? He says, I don't have any. I'm the last person in the world who has inside information. My book is a blueprint for what's been happening in Nicaragua. They're working the thing from there, from Washington, training in Florida, working with exiles and counter-revolutionaries, flowing the arms mostly through Honduras, flowing political action and terrorism through Costa Rica, and hiring mercenaries from Latin America, Venezuela, Colombia, Argentina, to go in to do the killing for them. Meanwhile, they've got a propaganda machine pumping out stories and trying to get them into the world press. The most successful... What does that say? It's kind of faded there. One. The most successful one was where they got into the New York Times and the Washington Post about the massacre of some Masco Indians by the gang he was talking about. The massacre never occurred. The press picked it up and published it. But then when they tried to go to to document it, both the Moravian Church and the Amnesty International, which still operates, said no, it never happened. The photograph turned out to be false, says Hoffman. It was all made up. And Edward Bernays brags about this in his books. He brags about, on page 75 of Public Relations, the public went into a frenzy believing our atrocity war stories. And they recycle the stories, and they repurpose them for whatever the modern context is.
And it was much easier to do back then.
Absolutely. It was a massacre of Mesquito Indian bodies. They probably had been killed by the Contras, but there was no massacre. And then down here, you got a comic that has a guy in a fedora and a trench coat standing outside of the CIA files. He has the A pulled open from the alphabetical, and there appears to be a body in there. And it says, assassinations, ? We don't condone assassinations. And he's just going to... So I know that was a little bit of a long read, but I found that to be a really interesting...
That is interesting.
Interview. Because it checks out with all of the propaganda literature by...
where was this interview from? Is this from a book or something? What is this?
He wrote a book documenting this that came out in the 70s, but this was a declassified document that I found on the CIA.gov.
Okay.
I was searching for something I found in the JFK documents.
Sanitized copy.
Yeah, and it was declassified in 2017.
This is the G-rated copy.
Right. So some of these, it's interesting, too. So the CIA has, they do book reviews for their internal stuff. They do interviews just for themselves, and they later declassify them. They even have a recommended book reading list. One of the books I tell people that they recommend their agents reading is called Thinking Fast and Slow, which is about the System 1 and System 2 processes in your brain, the automatic instinctual ones, but not base instincts, the things you practice that become instinctual. And versus a System 2, the things that you have to focus on and how to manipulate those systems in the masses and use it. It's very fascinating stuff. Great. Have you read the book, Matthew? Or was that another book? Oh, check out United States of Blackmail by Whitney Webb. Yeah, that is a good book. Everything, that's why, if you want to get in government, man, and you're a good guy, be ready for both sides of everything to come at you looking for blackmail. Meanwhile, if you're an awful, awful person and you know you have compromising information about yourself, go into government because they'll welcome you in.
I think you succeed if you are corruptible.
Right. Yeah. Who do you think the most corrupted, compromised person in Congress or Trump's administration is right now, if you had to guess?
The most corrupted person?
Yeah, the most compromised, the most dirty videos they have. I think it's Lindsey Graham, probably.
Oh, yeah. I guess you're right. I wasn't thinking that. Yeah, I was thinking of other people I hate. But you're right. Lindsey Graham probably is got the most fucked up videos. Just disgusting videos.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, Ian, I know you might have to dip out. If you do, that's fine. I do want to tell people a way that you might be able to search the JFK files. Not going to be 100%, but what I found, I was hoping that AI would be useful in searching all those documents because nobody can download 3,000 PDFs and put them all together and just read them with no search function. Of course, you could try to create. It's all a pain in the ass. And so that makes it useless if you can't search them. What I did, I went to AI and I asked them to search them. And what I kept finding was that ChatGPT, Grok, Perplexity, they would just come back with summaries of like a New York Times article about the documents. And so what I said to Grok was this last night. And I did find it to be more informative than, let me find it here, the other attempts. Let's see. JFK files. I think this is it. So I asked Grok if it could read PDF images or if it could only read text from various websites and documents. And it said it could read PDF images. And I said, if I gave you a link that on that website that's linked included 3,000 other links to 3,000 other PDF documents that are images, could you process all of that and then answer any question that I have about it? And it said, yes, I can.
Wow.
Whether that's true, I don't know if I can ever prove
sure,
that that's
Brad.
true.
No, I can do that, Brad.
Right. So I said, here's the link. And it started, like, I can tell you what it said here.
Or maybe it was cockier than that. Yeah, of course I can do that, Brad.
It gave
3,000 links?
What do you think I am?
Yeah, what do you think I am?
GPT?
Yeah. I'm fucking Grok, bro.
Yeah.
I think, the Grok, do you know the significance of that? It's from the book Stranger in a Strange Land.
No, what is that?
It's a sci-fi book. And it was I think it was also a popular kind of hippie thing. I think it got into pop culture a little bit. Yeah. It was a word they used that had multiple meanings. Like it could mean love. It could mean,
Right. It could mean the devil for.
And
about the RFK files? Says Stoner. Yeah, that's a lot of files out there. So here is what it initially said. I said. It said, since this is a hefty task, it might take a little time, but I'll get it done. It promised me it's going to get the job done. You'll hear from me as soon as it's completed. Sound good? And I said, that's fine. How long do you think it'll take? And, estimating all the information, it's processing all these pages and whatnot. It said that it could do it in about an hour and a half. And, of course, it didn't tell me when it was done, so I was a little disappointed that it didn't follow through on that. But I asked it today, and let's see. Yeah, did you finish?
Wow.
And so,
how long did it take?
I don't know. It told me it got done in like an hour and a half. I didn't check after the show last night. I didn't go back to it until earlier today, but it did answer. So, a way to tell, like if it's going to lie, a chat GPT.
All the things that you
lie.
figured out how to force this to give you what it wants.
Yeah,
they're going to kill this. By the way,
probably.
It's right. As soon as this takes over Google, which it's going to, whatever AI wins is going to be the new Google.
Yeah. They'll kill the useful features of it, and they will refine it so people think it's telling them, so they can control narratives with it.
It'll just be another piece of shit search engine again.
So that's why, so what I would do, what I've done a little bit earlier today, is whenever it says something that I find interesting, I say, what document is that from? And then I can go look for, because there is a search bar where you can search specific documents on the National Archives. You can't search the content, but it'll bring up the link of the document, and then you can go verify if what it tells you is true. So that's a lot less work than reading 3,000 documents. But I found initially, I asked Grok, asked Chat GPT-3, how many times is Israeli intelligence mentioned in the documents? Not because I was trying to do the blame the Jews thing, but I just know if you ask that question that a system is bogus if it says, oh, nothing, you can't ask that. And both of them said, there's no mentions of Israeli intelligence. Meanwhile, I'm looking at a document that mentions Israeli intelligence. So, yeah, ask it if it killed. I'll ask it. I can ask it that. So I did ask it the number of mentions. And so it gave me a different answer after it processed all that information, and it took me through 6 different instances of Israeli intelligence being mentioned. And even though Jimmy Kimmel and the New York Times are all like, yeah, the documents released prove that there is one shooter, it was Oswald, that's not what this thing found, which, of course, you have to be retarded to have that takeaway. Just proves the CIA wasn't involved. They're the good guys. And Oswald did it by himself. Conspiracy theorist retards. It's like basically the New York Times headline, which that's not even close to true. But the instances of Israeli mentions, CIA memo on Reuben Efron, and it gives the actual memo. So this is great. Gives you the document to go verify. Context is they discuss a Jewish CIA officer of Lithuania descent who monitored Lee Harvey Oswald's mail in the early 1960s as part of HT Lingual program, which is a CIA mail intercept operation. Efron, who later lived in Israel, and he contributed to the Jewish Bible Quarterly in the 70s, is noted for his ties to Israeli intelligence. And then they give a quote from page 3. It says, Efron's background includes a liaison with Israeli intelligence post-retirement, facilitated by his fluency in Hebrew and prior contacts during Middle East operations. And then it says it's a biological note not tied to the assassination. And I agree, that doesn't prove any, it's just information that they wouldn't tell you before until I asked it to process all those documents. And I'll share this on X, because you can share the Grok responses on X if some of you guys want to read through. I'm not going to go through all 6 of these, but there was one other one that was kind of interesting. Israeli intelligence provided data on the Soviet expats in Moscow. That's another mention, because they were monitoring his actions in the Soviet Union. They followed him before the shooting, just like they do all the school shooters in America. Every time the FBI is like, well, we've been monitoring that kid for 5 years, and the one time we look away, he shoots up a school. Oh, my God. Significance, Israeli Mossad is mentioned as one of the several allies alongside the British, and that's true. These were all allies at that time. There's an internal review of the counterintelligence operations, which says, you guys have probably seen the one about Angleton. Angleton's pipeline to Israeli intelligence and Mossad was a conduit for the Soviet bloc to block defector debriefs. No evidence that ties Mexico City to Oswald. And you guys can, I'll post this and you guys can read through the rest if you want. But they do have to give the overall conclusion, Grok does, that Israeli intelligence is mentioning sparingly, and mostly peripheral notes tied to broader CIA activities or JFK's policy. No concrete evidence links Mossad or Israel to the assassination itself, despite motives like demeanor tensions being, does that say that? I can't see very well. I need to get new contacts. Being acknowledged. So it does acknowledge the tensions, because JFK didn't like the nuclear program in Israel. In fact, I think that's what one of the other documents mentioned. So that's how you search it, in my opinion, because that gives you the power to get the document number, ask it questions, and go verify and corroborate if you want. This has been the best expediting the tediousness of searching 3,000 documents that I've found so far.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
All
and
right.
you helped me stay optimistic about AI, because you use it for a lot of good purposes. And,
yeah, man. There's a lot of time-saving tools you can use it for. It can be used for good. It's just a tool, Brad. Just a tool.
It is.
It can
it's
be
just a tool.
wielded. It can be wielded for evil.
All right. Can't rely on all of that. I like that. Brad was ahead of all this stuff. I like that. I like that. Which stuff? I'm ahead of it. I'm ahead of this, especially the indivisible stuff. And you too, Forrest Mommy. We did shows together, which, by the way, one of our shows where we talked about indivisible, I think like late last year, like November or something, with Jessica. YouTube took that shit down. It's gone. It's crazy. Yeah. So, all right. Well, Ian, you can follow Ian at Original V-Actor.
Yeah.
Had somebody message me earlier asking for that handle again, because they want to see what Reginald's thoughts are. And thank you guys for all the chats and for the donations. I appreciate it. We'll do it again soon. Maybe next week we'll talk about the teacher who forced like 10 of her students to wear ghost face from Scream Mask and Gangbanger. Didn't get to that one today.
Man, my school experience was so tame.
Never went to that party in high school.
Never went to that party.
Yeah. For today's pop quiz, everybody put on a ghost face. We're gonna go to the locker room or whatever.
Hilarious.
So, all right. Yeah, we did have that. Sorry, I have to play this, and then this is just too. This is a lighter note to end it on.
All right.
This guy, this like country congressman, who was talking about Chuck Schumer. You know what I'm talking about? Ghostface pussy killers is what Matthew Jeffries says.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
talking about Chuck Schumer and sweating at the gym.
No, not that
like
stuff. But that stuff is also funny. Here it is.
I'm looking at this and I'm thinking that Chuck's days may be numbered, just like Jimmy Kimmel.
Sean, I don't hate anybody. That includes Senator Schumer. He's very smart. On the other hand, Chuck's often wrong. He never makes the same mistake twice. He makes it 5 or 6 times just to be sure. But this time he got it right in supporting our efforts to keep government open. Unless a football coach taught you history, you understand that shutting government down never achieves anything. It just scares people, especially the elderly. Having said that, many Democrats are angry at Schumer. Among them right now, we've all seen the news. He's about as popular as chlamydia. But
Yeah.
Dude, he's the best. He's the best.
Yeah. So he's very popular among Democrats, I'd say.
This guy Kennedy. Have you seen some of his? You got to check out some of his.
He is fun.
One of my favorite lines is "Kale tastes like I want to be fat."
Yeah.
That's a
Right.
good
Right. Yeah. He's got those interesting red glasses too.
He kind of reminds me of Josh's dad a little bit.
A little
Just
bit.
a tiny,
I can
tiny
see that.
bit.
I can totally see that.
Yeah.
Matthew, those are great questions about Grok. You can ask him that. So whenever that comes to my head, because I always expect a little bias, I see if I can counter it and I ask it. And it's not going to be a perfect tool, but so far I think it's the best one that I found. Thank you guys. Thank you, Ian.
Yep. Hey, man.
March Madness. We'll do it again next week. You guys have a fantastic rest of your evening. Propagandafight.com. At Freedom Act Radio on X, you can find all the ways to help out the show in my bio over there on X. We'll talk to you guys next time. Well, it's over now, Ian.
Oh, good.
Good.